For those of you asking, yes, we're talking about Gemini. Yes, we're talking about Duet. And first of all, thank you all for coming to our session instead of lunch. I know it was a hard choice, but we really are appreciative that you're here. And Jared and I are very excited to share our journey with you, the journey that we've had through Code Assist in GenAI. Now, throughout the presentation, we are not presenting our experience, but we'll also be throwing in what we hope is some entertaining and possibly relatable role-playing as well. What if we talk about something that I'm sure no one here has heard about? I may have already mentioned it a few times. Do you think they've heard about GenAI? Anyone using GenAI? Anyone?
There's a chance.
There's a chance. All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started because today we are going to start with identifying developer pain points. Now, we at PayPal took some time to dissect what we would call the horrors of merge conflicts, and what I like to personally refer to as that existential despair when you're staring at the cursor in the middle of the screen. And then we moved into, well, how can GenAI help us solve some of these problems that developers are facing? And what we found was, think of it like Jarvis for your code base, but without the really snarky British accent. And we are going to talk to you today about the experiment that we did here. So buckle up as we walk through the ride of our adoption of GenAI, of Duet. We are also going to be giving you an actual demonstration, and we had some pretty surprising results that we're going to be sharing with you. Finally, we're actually hoping to leave you inspired because we want you to leave here thinking about how we can reimagine our entire development process. Now, let's go ahead and dive into that head first. What I'd like to go into is the daily struggles of developer life, where, for any of you that are developers, deadlines can be mythical creatures at times, and writing comprehensive tests can feel like an impossible quest based on your code base. And sometimes the allure of just deleting everything and starting over can be surprisingly strong.
So tell us a little bit about what your developer productivity pain points are. Scan the code to answer.
Everyone?
And then maybe we'll pick somebody to give some espresso at the end. So you definitely
Espresso, if you're interested. I don't actually have any espresso, it doesn't fly. It's like the cake is a lie, but it's a lie. That's where we're out.
All of them.
Right. Wow. Yeah. Legacy code. I like it. I don't actually like legacy code. Don't write that down. All right. We can let him keep going. I think for now.
Legacy code sounds like it's the winner.
We're getting there. Incomplete documentation is fighting it out. It turns out those two go together a lot. And that's actually very similar to what we found as we were doing the documentation in ours. So I mentioned role play. Tell me if this scenario sounds familiar at all. Ready? All right, Jared. As you know, we're facing a problem. We need to be churning out features faster than a caffeinated hummingbird. I need more, I need better, I need it yesterday. And what I really need is an application launched tomorrow. I'd like that application to not require users to log in, but still process millions of financial transactions. And if we could actually process those financial transactions in 0.1 milliseconds or less, that'd be great.
So you remember that Java framework we standardized on? Well, surprise, they just released a completely incompatible major version. Security is on us to fix it, and we have to upgrade a few thousand apps, refactor all of the components, and then pray none of our third-party libraries explode in the process.
Yeah, I don't really see what sounds so hard about that.
Oh, but I also have 25 PR reviews to do this week and 3 operational reviews, and my 2 new hires haven't actually checked in their first line of code yet. So you want me to build a sandcastle during an earthquake while juggling chainsaws?
I know. I think the only thing we need to do is just increase your productivity, right? That'll fix it.
No, we could start by measuring productivity.
Okay, well, that sounds reasonable. How do we measure your productivity today?
So, I mean, I track my productivity by the number of empty coffee cups on my desk. I think I'm crushing it. High five.
High five. All right. Well, that is the question that we really were setting out to solve.
But all joking aside, devs probably spend, 50% of your time actually writing code, and the rest on those outer loop activities. That really keeps you from a state of flow, keeping your engineer to the state of that inner loop of productive work.
Now, if you haven't heard of the inner loop and the outer loop, you're lucky. But we spent a lot of time on it here, setting out to solve that problem of what makes being a developer so hard. What is getting in their way? What slows them down day to day? And how are we going to measure it?
They may have heard a lot of people in the industry trying to actually measure developer productivity. So how do you do it? Do you focus on output? Do you focus on impact? Do you focus on effort versus outcome?
There was really a big debate here that we didn't want to get stuck in.
So Michelle and I, we actually refute the idea that productivity can be measured solely by activity volume or individual performance. Feedback and friction were captured by a real-time feedback platform. The Watch Me Code outlook give us a really clear picture of the developer journey. And lastly, a consistent focus on engineering barriers to execution gave us the feedback that we.
Yeah, because here at PayPal, we actually really knew that it was very important to have a well-rounded view of developer productivity. So our developer platforms teams did a research in this area. We consulted directly with experts like Nicole Forsgren, if you've heard of her, some great books I recommend. We also, through that presentation and through that research, landed on a two-pronged approach using both Space and Dora. Well, with compared, Space is a framework that was created by the researchers at GitHub, Microsoft, and the University of Victoria. It offers the most holistic approach at measuring and improving team effectiveness by measuring satisfaction, performance, activity, communication and collaboration, and efficiency. Now, within Space, we've chosen to embed some well-known Dora metrics, deployment frequency, and lead time, which we fall under performance metrics within Space. Now, we continue to evolve the way that we measure, carefully choosing when do we need instrumentation, with because doing a lot of time and legend, and when is qualitative data the right answer. Now, finding a standard way to measure productivity is still an area with a lot of physics improvement opportunity in the States. As an example, if you haven't seen already, go ahead and scan the code. I'd love to see how many different ways are there to measure productivity just in your own teams today. How many differences do we have? We don't measure. As actually turns out that was our answer. So it's not too long ago before we did this experiment. What I'm most interested in is something else. We should talk with the castle. Wording you, letting you.
All right. So there's most of you don't measure it.
That tracks.
So now that we understand how to measure productivity, we actually can start to move forward on what's so around March of last year. Gemini first off the scene, impossible to ignore, impossible to resist. This new technology ignited the imagination of investors, executives, pretty much everyone. Now product and engineering leaders are refreshed to find the productivity gains, and you see a 10%, about a 50%. What's the actual long-term potential that you see in these companies? You're listening to operational expense. It sound familiar to you?
All right. Jared, have you heard there's this new AI tool? It can call her like Gemini, where that she can write your product requirements when you text that. The code smells, and she can program the new Basley for us right down. With FAM, really functional product ready to ship to millions of PayPal users.
Yeah, I don't think that's how that works.
No, totally. I read it on The Onion and like 3 other blogs. I heard that she can fix everything for you, and all you have to do is take a picture of the code or take a picture of what you want, whiteboard, and she'll code it all for you.
Yeah, that's not how any of that works.
Are you sure? I think that we should be using a suit like tomorrow. It works today. Or really, yes, are you really honestly, why are all of our developers already?
But because these both process will get that level up to the process. Found it wider.
So, as it turns out, it was not massive. And it wasn't even something that we could bring into a large, highly regulated environment like ours in a day. But we did launch a systematic approach and a process to evaluate how treating AI would solve the pain points that we were facing every day with our thousands of developers. And we categorized those opportunities into 6 bucket cases. That is a very left about expansion. And then there's for the state of it.
So, you code generating large scale application affairs, automated issues, look out of tradition, knowledge sharing on all of your disparate teams, test automation, and vitally, how about some AI assisted PR reviews?
Yeah. Well, once we had those buckets, we were able to zero in as code generation and auto-completion for a few key reasons. First of all, we knew it was going to be high impact. There was just no doubt that if we could directly impact the code speed, it would impact developer productivity. We also knew that they were available for code generation and auto-completion were more available than most of the other opportunities available. That, for example, was available so she tried experimenting well. And we also knew that we should quickly test and measure the impact of these tools on our without anyone needing to running into the same picture.
So, I propose an experiment. I need prize money, all the seats
So we can eat 1,000 developers in a week.
I can give you 100 developers in maybe a day.
Well, since I run on unrealistic expectations and Mountain Dew, sure, why not?
All right, well, every good experiment begins with a good hypothesis. And our hypothesis was that Google Duet could improve developer cycle time and delight developers.
So we researched what we could do for a code generation experiment. Our whole goal was simple: make that developer cycle time shrink. Get those stories from start to finish faster. So here's how it all began. We all know great things don't happen in a vacuum. Back in 2023, before it was even generally available, we kicked things off with the Google Duet team. They tackled all of our security and legal questions, and they even spent time with us on site, giving us the Duet pro tips.
Now, getting that new AI technology approved took some work, and we'll talk more on that later in our lessons learned. But one of the very first things that we did was sit down and agree on clear success criteria. Now, for a code assist tool to be helpful, really helpful, we needed to measure, are developers actually using the suggestions that AI is giving? Really looking at what is our acceptance rate, the real proof of whether the tool is providing value to our developers or not. We also needed to know, do developers like it? Because sentiment is important. A tool that no one enjoys is not going to be successfully deployed. We also had to understand, where is that time saved? Are there numbers that we can put around a productivity boost that we would expect? And the biggest one, which was, can we increase speed without compromising quality and security? So we took those 4 metrics and we moved forward with those as our guide.
All right, picture this. We set up a code battle royale. So we formed these dev squads, gave each of one of them a focus mission, build a full app with must-have features. And then to level the playing field, you get a fresh sandbox, new GCP project, clean GitHub and Jira instances, all just for this experiment.
Now, in the initial experiment, we saw that the Google Duet group consistently completed the coding task faster than the control group who had no access to GenAI tools. For example, in one of the controlled tests, we asked developers to build an e-commerce application. That application needed to have a product listing and a PayPal integration. Now, our control group was able to complete this application in about 8 hours, which seems like pretty reasonable for what we asked. But our Duet group completed the exact same application build in only 2 hours and 45 minutes. In another controlled test, For developers, we asked them to build a drive time estimation application. It was a smaller test than the first one, but we still found that the Duet group was able to complete the code 48% faster than the control group.
So this isn't just about throwing Duet at devs and hoping for the best. We captured real-time feedback while they were coding. We captured analytics on developer cycle time. We did static code scans to make sure code quality and security didn't drop off by using AI tools. Our devs were genuinely pumped to get their hands on their tools. Their energy was amazing. Overall, it wasn't a complete disaster. There's always room for improvement, but their constructive criticism was just a gentle reminder of AI's little imperfections. Go back, sorry. Thankfully, our developers were more than willing to jump in because, the little shiny object always kind of drove an endless supply of new developers. All right, so what are the results? We harnessed the power of Duet, and guess what? We magically gained back 23 to 43% of our lives. Goodbye boilerplate coding. Hello, actually solving interesting problems. Think about what that means. Code quality, still good. Security, impenetrable as ever. In fact, 87% of us increased the ratio of empty coffee cups per desk, because remember, that's how we measure productivity. If that doesn't get you to try out Duet, you might just like midnight caffeine-fueled coding sessions a little bit too much.
Well, you can still like it and be productive. Needless to say, the initial experiment was really promising, and it generated a lot of interest to roll out further experimentation. So within 6 weeks of this initial experiment that we showed the results of, we made Duet available to all PayPal developers to start using in their daily code.
So 6 weeks is pretty quick, but getting these tools into the hands of developers was more important than our ability to measure the productivity impact.
Yeah. Jared, why don't we show them an example of one of the use cases developers used for Duet once we had access?
All right. Our developers are constantly finding new ways to use Duet. Take this example. One of our guys had to work with some unfamiliar code. He used Duet to break it down, get a plain English explanation, generate all of the missing documentation, and even create a test plan. Turns out, this tool isn't just about writing code faster, it's about understanding and improving code that's already there.
Hi, I'm Harshal Ramesh, a developer at PayPal, and I recently inherited a code base that I need to understand and determine if there are any quality gaps that need to be addressed. The file that I'm looking at has over 1,000 lines of code. There is no formal documentation for this file, and I'm also concerned if the tests cover all functionality. Normally, this task would take a couple of days, but with Gemini code assist, I'm able to complete it in just a couple of hours. Let's take a look. First, I'm going to ask Gemini to explain the file that I currently have open. I'm going to iterate through the checks that I would normally go through to ensure that Gemini is on the right track. I also need to document this file. Let's ask Gemini to convert that description into a markdown format that I can include in the project. What's remarkable about Gemini Code Assist is that it understands technical documentation formats like Markdown and others. I have a response, and I'm going to copy-paste the content into my Markdown file. But it looks like the formatting was incorrect. However, I know that Gemini can help me transform code and documentation from one format into another. So I'm going to ask Gemini to give me documentation in the format that I need. This looks more like it. Let's include it, make a few minor edits, and we are done. Now that the documentation task is out of the way, I will move on to the testability of the code itself. I'm also going to ask Gemini to create a test plan for this file. This looks like a comprehensive test plan. I notice that there is an existing test for this file. I'm going to ask Gemini to compare the existing test file with the generated plan to identify missing test cases. Awesome. Gemini has identified missing test scenarios that I believe are important for the maintainability of this code base. Can Gemini also help me generate the code for these test cases? Perfect. This looks like a great starting point, and I can now start incorporating them into my code base. As you can see, Gemini Code Assist has helped me power through foundational tasks in a matter of minutes.
All right, days to minutes, not too bad. Thank you, Harsha, for that video. And this is really a dream come true for platform owners. When you have developers, and this is happening across PayPal right now, development teams who are documenting and blogging internally without us even asking them to. They are proactively sharing the great successes that they are having using this tool. They are talking about the documentation acceleration, as you saw in our own survey. Poor documentation, that's a huge benefit that we're seeing across the company. They're also talking about how they are improving their test coverage, how they're improving their test fidelity. And that is steamrolling into new teams finding new use cases, because we all like to be on the bandwagon. And when you've got other developers that you respect and that you know talking about the great things they're doing with it, it's driving adoption and more creative uses of that within our company. Now, one of the things that I will give you as a lesson learned is that those champions, that steamroll effect that we're getting, is absolutely essential to a good rollout if you want to use this tool in your company. As I mentioned earlier, though, it was not all golden path to get here. We stubbed our toes a few times, and we learned a lot along the way. And I'd really like to share with you some of those lessons learned so that you can use them as you're starting your journey. Now, when it comes to tool functionality, do not expect this to replace your developers. It is here to amplify the developers that you have. Let AI take care of the tedious parts of generating test cases, things like fixing those routine code issues, and that will allow your teams to free up time to solve some of the big picture challenges that they have. Also, as a value proposition, do not just be very clear about how much time your developers are spending in coding tasks. Remember that this tool is for one piece of that developer lifecycle, and you need to be able to measure that specific time. More importantly, really think about how you expect your developers to use that time once you do accelerate those tedious tasks. We found that now is a really great time to clean up your backlog. We also found that Duet features like your chat interface made the experience feel a lot more natural and easier, especially for our junior developers. That feature alone was a huge differentiator in both our developer sentiment and our developer usage.
So here are just a few of the highlights we learned when rolling out Duet to thousands of developers at PayPal. First, enabling birthright access, seamless onboarding experience, and Google's hands-on support was absolutely critical to adoption. Google is an amazing partner every step of the way for us. This concept of FOMO, or fear of missing out, kind of drove early successes and generated excitement across the company. Kind of provided an endless group of engineers willing to join our experiments. And then lastly, AI champions like Harsha should be recognized to drive wider usage and adoption across your company.
So one of the things I will add to that is making sure as you're rolling out, when we talk about that adoption strategies and challenges, he mentioned birthright access, but it was really all hands on deck trying to get this out to developers as quickly as we could. We had more people demanding it than we were able to roll it out very quickly. There were also a lot of challenges in bringing a new and unfamiliar tool like Duet into the enterprise. So challenge one for us was a lot of the conversation around responsible AI. The safe and ethical use of AI is just non-negotiable, and it's also applicable to your code assist. So at PayPal, we have a rigorous approval process that's led by a responsible AI committee. If you don't have a committee, I recommend getting one. It is useful for not just code assist, but many of the other challenges that we're facing. This is a cross-functional team. It includes experts in legal, compliance, privacy, and security, and it guides how we build and deploy AI responsibly within the company. Secure implementation and experimentation was also a very strong commitment that we made to the company. Before rolling out any new technology, including this, we always want to prioritize security, and that's why we created isolated sandbox environments. We worked with non-proprietary code during our experiments so that we could mitigate both the security and the legal risks while we really understood how it was going to impact the environment. We also had to address a lot of the concerns around just the use of AI. For example, many of you have probably heard the questions around open source license and compliance. Now, this one in particular, it was important to frame as this is actually an issue we face every day in the core tenet of our development process. This is not an AI-specific problem. Static analysis tools that we use in our normal dev processes were applied. It's the same way we solve it in our normal world. It's the same way we solve it in Gen AI. We applied it during the experiment and during rollout. Overall, I would really underscore that collaboration within the company, multiple teams, the security-minded approaches, and having that deep commitment to an ethical AI has to be part of your plan in rolling something like Gemini out. Now, of all the things that we learned, the loudest lesson is how early we are in the maturity of our AI journey. We have seen how AI can boost coding speed, but that is actually just the start. Our next frontier is streamlining the entire product development lifecycle. Just imagine a day where there are no vague requirements, because AI has helped us write clear, actionable ones, and it even automates the creation of those epics in Jira for us. Imagine when AI can predict behavior and suggest the features that users truly want and insert them into our roadmaps, and maybe even start to write the code for us. Imagine when things inevitably go wrong during our development process, AI can step in, help us analyze our build failures, help accelerate incident resolution, and we can even use AI to optimize our deployment strategies. It can predict the best rollout times and help us minimize risk as we're deploying code. My favorite, when we think about those top pain points, is to imagine a world not just where we can use AI to read and write documentation, but maybe we don't even need documentation, because we can train custom models as part of our development lifecycle. And then, without documentation, AI knows everything it needs to know about the integration. And a developer can simply ask questions in dialogue instead of asking AI to read the documentation for it. We need to scroll down, actually. Can you scroll down? We're still going. I still have more to say. All right. So the future is not about code alone. That's just a small piece. It's about AI revolutionizing the entire product lifecycle. PayPal is using Gemini to continue to push that experiment into reality.
Who remembers when she wanted that unicorn AI to code a fully functional product based on a photo of a whiteboard, ready to ship to millions of users in a highly regulated fintech market?
Yeah, I remember.
Wait till you see our keynote next year.
All right, all you now.
Thanks, guys. That was great. Really appreciate it. As you can see, we've got customers like PayPal already using some of these tools, but we've got a lot more that we're debuting here at the conference this week. And so I just want to give a shout out to some of the places where you can find out more about what we're doing with Gemini in the Google Cloud portfolio. Not only with software development that you see with Code Assist, but also all the other parts of development and data analysis that are important to your business. So we're applying these Gen AI capabilities to cloud as part of Cloud Assist, to data analytics, to business intelligence, and other places. We've got a lot on the agenda this week. And there's a bunch of other sessions that you can go to, so some of them are listed up here. The first two on the left there are all about Cloud Assist and how we're helping customers integrate their cloud data into our AI applications to make it easier to deploy and optimize and manage your cloud workloads. And then for those of you who are interested in Code Assist, we've got a great spotlight session where we're going to be talking a lot more about what we're doing with Gemini, and a bunch of other sessions about integrating data more deeply into these Gen AI experiences so that they can be more customized and more specific to the types of problems that you have and you face every day. So stay tuned. There's a lot more Gemini content coming your way as the week progresses. And with that, I want to spend a little bit of time talking with PayPal in more depth about your journey. In particular, Jared, a lot of this is brand new for the developers that you're working with. They haven't seen this stuff maybe before at all. Did you face any resistance from those development teams as you were rolling this stuff out?
Yeah, it's a really great question, and we definitely faced some resistance. I think there's a lot of questions to be answered about, like, how do you reimagine your role when AI can do some of these things? So there's certainly developers who feel it's a fad. There are certainly some developers who feel it won't do some of the things that they can, which we agree with. It's just going to make you a better developer, and it's going to amplify the work that you do. So we definitely did that, and we instrumented feedback throughout the whole process, and we made sure we could follow up with those that had a negative sentiment. We made them believers.
Gotcha. Michelle, you mentioned metrics, right? The DORA metrics, lead time for changes and deployment frequency, lots of things around the speed of development. As you were applying Gen AI, how do you see that impacting the metrics that you care about, particularly with respect to speed?
Yeah, I think this goes back to some of the framing of the metrics that we're talking about. I will tell you, it is so easy to get excited when you see numbers like 45% faster in a development cycle. And those are real numbers that we're seeing, but it's also important to remember that that is just the code phase of the cycle. And when you look at an entire lead time, what you're looking at is plan, code, build, test, deploy. And so understanding then, well, if I can do this piece 45% faster with Code Assist, well, what does that translate out to into my total lead time? Now, again, no doubt that lead time is going to come down, which is another one of the reasons that we are looking at that holistic lead time, making sure that we're not just shifting the burden to a different bottleneck, right? If we're coding that much faster, well, can our testing keep up? Can our deployment keep up? And that is actually what's led us to do a lot of the additional experimentation in those other sections of the product development lifecycle, is making sure that we don't, you can over-optimize in one area and just create bottlenecks in the rest of the system. So being able to measure your full lead time has become very important for us.
Gotcha. Jared, one of the areas that we've been investing a lot in, which you saw in the keynote with Gemini 1.5 and that huge context window, is bringing a lot more data into the process of generating answers when we're doing code completion, when we're doing code generation. Given that that's where a lot of things are headed here, and there's a bunch of opportunities to customize through integrating your data, are there any particular sources of data at PayPal that you think would be interesting to fold in to improve kind of the quality of the answers you're getting out?
Yes, definitely. Within the space framework, obviously, we want to maintain, improve the collaboration of our developers, and we also want to make sure that they have access to answers quickly. So if you can imagine, being able to ask Duet about, our enterprise question and answer tools, our incident ticketing system, our internal documentation, even our coding standards, being able to ask questions of all of that and interrogate those within your IDE is just going to keep developers in flow a lot longer and get questions answered without them having to leave and go find it elsewhere.
Excellent. Michelle, obviously you care a lot about security at PayPal, and it's obviously very important to you in the industry you're in and at the size that you operate. What were some of the security concerns that you had to think about as you look at adopting a new technology like this and bringing it into such a sensitive part of your workflow?
Yeah, well, again, almost any developer tool, or no, any tool that we bring in, we put through a pretty rigorous process through architecture review, design review, data modeling, and particularly with any of the tools that you're looking at for a developer and how deeply ingrained those get into your organization, it is really important to get into the details here in the data flows. Where are those gateways sitting? Where are decisions happening? What are the data points that are getting fed back to a central location, and how many of those can you keep central? So we had, many of the Google friends will remember, we had a lot of really deep, detailed conversations before we could even bring a tool like this into the organization. And it is absolutely something that is not standardized. So every developer tool that you're looking at may do this a little bit differently. So making that evaluation every time, making that evaluation not a one-time thing, but something that you are constantly going back to, because it's evolving. The way that data flows in these AI models, especially when we're getting them from a provider like Gemini, changes. So pay attention to where is your data going, where are decisions being made, get the right collaboration with your security personnel and your security architects involved with your developer team to make sure that what you're doing can accelerate your productivity without compromising the security in your organization.
Thank you. Jared, we saw in the video demo there that one of your developers had applied Gemini to some of the test cases. Testing is a big part of delivering quality code. Within that, what are some of the types of work around testing where you think Gen AI could be applicable and could really make a difference?
I think there's probably quite a few places. I think number one, as you're switching legacy code over, the ability to refactor that code and then regenerate unit tests will be pretty critical. That's just toil that nobody wants. I think second, when you switch over to more modern testing methods, if you want to switch over to component testing, it can create those for you. And then when you have a pretty large legacy code base, being able to actually analyze your testing and see how that testing is working, get rid of some of the over-testing, really speed up your overall dev cycle. You can start understanding how effective your tests are.
Excellent. And finally, I guess a question for both of you. Talked a little bit about the future, where this might be headed. What's the most exciting thing that you see coming next? What's the thing that you're going to do when you get back from this conference?
Yeah, so I'll go first. Sorry, Jared, because I am excited. So you heard me in the presentation talk about a lot about imagining. Well, the really exciting part is we've gone a little past imagining already. We did the imagining, and we are already experimenting with a lot of really cool stuff in our test space, in our product design space, in our planning space. And I can't tell you all about it yet because it is still pretty early experimentation, but just knowing some of the really cool opportunities that we are seeing to, really truly change what our product development lifecycle looks like. Not just take it for what it is and say, can I speed it up a little bit more? But to the point of, can we just not have documentation anymore? What can we do in our planning cycle to actually just remove whole steps because we don't need them anymore, because we can integrate them into other areas of our cycle? So I know that wasn't a specific, like the one thing, and I think Jared has got some pretty good details here. But for me, being able to take that product development lifecycle that we have known for so long, and that we have been just trying to tweak for so long, and really just kind of blow it up a little bit and say, actually, does this have to happen in this order? Does this have to happen with these people involved and with these steps involved? And the answer is no, not anymore, because we have a brand new world ahead of us with the tools that we have, not just in Code Assist, but using Gemini as a whole, using Gen AI as a whole within the cycle. And I'm very excited for the stuff that we're seeing now and that we see coming in the next few months.
Thanks, Jared.
I guess I'm a product manager at heart, and so I think looking to the future where, we don't have a cycle, kind of as Michelle mentioned, there isn't a cycle anymore. It is really now taking customer feedback and turning that into new features in a new way. This isn't going to be a, cycle that happens the way it has been happened all along. I think we are going to completely turn this on its head, and new features are going to get, rolled out to customers faster than we've ever seen it before, and developers will be, significantly more productive, and every pain point that we saw up there is going to be solved, and you'll be focusing on new things that haven't been worked on before. So that's what I'm most excited to see what's next.
Yeah, have some whole new set of problems that we've never even heard of before come. So.
Well, thanks. I appreciate you running to those questions with us.